We're now live on YouTube.
Good evening. I would like to ask the Reverend Dan Storkbanks from St Lawrence Church, Chobham and St Saviour Valley End Church to guide the council in prayer.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. God of all peace and lover of concord, mercifully anoint this here council and its members by the power of your Holy Spirit, that they may be given wisdom and a sense of justice. Grant them the strength to bear the burden of their office, not seeking their own gain, but the benefit of the communities they represent. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome members, officers and any members of the public viewing at home this evening's council meeting. Miss Willis, may I please have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've received apologies from Councillor Colin Dugan.
Thank you. Moving to agenda item 2, I propose that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on 22nd of July and the extraordinary meetings on the 26th of August 2020 be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second that.
Is that all agreed, members?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 3. For this evening, I have a very special job to do. As many of you will know, or will have seen over the weekend, our very own Arlene Poulter was made a member of the Order of the British Empire in the Queen's Birthday Honours for services to vulnerable and older people. Congratulations, Arlene. An amazing honour and richly deserved. As many of you will know, Arlene is our operations manager for community services and has been described as the glue that keeps the delivery of community services together. I'm glad we've got one. The award recognises Arlene's passionate commitment to reducing social isolation, both through going above and beyond in her role at Surrey Heath Borough Council, and many hours of voluntary work carried out at evenings and weekends, especially in setting up the Saturday Club at Windlesham Valley Centre. Arlene is a hugely valued and respected member of staff who treats everyone who uses community services as she would a member of her own family. From Saturday Club attendees to meals at home recipients to those who have community alarms. Her caring and unstinting commitments to providing the best possible care and service both at work and during her many hours of voluntary activities makes a real difference to some of the most vulnerable people in our community. I have some lovely flowers here to present to Arlene. MBE, Arlene Poulter, MBE, no less. And I'm sure you will all want to join me in saying congratulations once again to Arlene for such an amazing achievement and one which is hugely well deserved.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Would you like to say a few words?
I'd just like to say thank you to all of you who've congratulated me. It's still a bit surreal at the moment, and I'd just like to say without the amazing team that I have at Surrey Heath, I couldn't do what I do. I've got great staff that come out on a Saturday and help me out, and Christmas Day wouldn't be right if I didn't go out and deliver a meal, at least one. And over the years, I have wanted to take a lot of the clients home with me to have Christmas dinner, but I tend to do Christmas dinner for about 16, so my house is big enough to add any more to it. So I'd just like to say thank you all very much, and I hope I can continue to do the job I do. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unfortunately, now my announcements, nothing so grand and so well deserved. Unfortunately, very little happens outside the virtual world. I attended the raising of the Pride flag. I attended the birthday of a young lady of 111. Yes, 111. Celebrated with champagne and cake with her granddaughters. She told me that earlier in the day, her great-grandson had stood outside her room and played the pipes for her. She said that the pipes were like Marmite. I looked a bit bemused. You love them or you hate them, she said. I'm sorry I miss them, as I am a lover of pipes. I attended an event in the square by Creative Minds. This is a group that do a 24-hour workshop once a year, which is normally held in Camberley Theatre. Over the 24 hours, the group put together a production and then put on a show in the theatre. This year was different. The theatre was out of bounds. So over the 24 hours, they learnt dance routines over Zoom, did quizzes, built a bridge with anything they could find in their own houses, out of the bridge out of Lima Isabel. They carried out many different tasks throughout the day. At the end of the 24 hours, they performed in the square. Unfortunately, singing was prohibited, dancing was allowed, so the group performed a song in sign, not in mime, in sign. This was very moving and made you think about the world would be like without a song, a world without sound. The Battle of Britain was commemorated with the raising of the flag and prayers on the front lawn. And as we had to confirm to the rule of 6 invitees, so many could not attend. These included both residents and councillors. So I'm very sorry for those that weren't able to attend. I visited Lightwater to unveil a blue plaque, which was also attended by the chairman of Windlesham Parish Council. I thought I knew a lot about Paddockwood School, but I learnt a lot more on that day. I was invited to attend the opening of the Secret Stage School in Grace Reynolds Walk, where I met a young lady who was bursting with excitement, energy and passion. She had been unemployed since March. She is a song and dance teacher at schools due to the COVID-19. And had decided that the only way forward was to open her own stage school. With the help of 40 volunteers and 7 days, they turned the disused shop into a studio for drama with a soundproof room, especially for singing, and an open area on the roof for relaxation. It was enlightening to hear that in all her excitement and passion, that she expressed her thanks to the officers of this council and the management of the square for all their help and support in making the stage school open. And I think we wish her every success in the future. And last but not least, our Green Space team. They have achieved the 20th green flag for Frimley Lodge, and the 2nd green flag for Lightwater Country Park. And I think that says something about the dedication of some of our officers. So I would like to congratulate them. Thank you. Now moving on, agenda item 4, I'd like to invite the leader to make his announcements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amongst probably the most important announcements I have to do this evening is to add my congratulations to Aline Poulter, MBE. Aline, you'll have to get used to hearing those 3 letters from behind your name from the rest of your life. Not a hard task, I think. Madam Mayor has listed Aline's many qualities and what she means to the council and our residents. But I just wanted to tell you briefly of my first meeting with Aline. I went into her section to introduce myself. Aline introduced me to her team, then sat me down and listed all the ways in which I can help them do a better job for the residents. I was looking a bit shell-shocked and she saw that. So she insisted that I help myself to some of the range of goodies that she keeps in the department, cakes and chocolate. And those who know me know that I don't need 2 invitations to do that. But I think it just shows the experience of Aline, how important she is to the residents, how important she is to the council. And with her, the residents come first, but let's have some fun doing it. And I just really want to add my congratulations, Aline, to you again. Well done. Moving on, given the shifting stands of unitaries, I think an update is in order. As members know, the government had indicated their strong desire to see local government reorganised. All across local government up and down the country, including in this chamber, there was a healthy appetite for change, but disagreement on exactly what that change should look like. This council, along with the other 10 boroughs and districts in Surrey, engaged KPMG to examine all the options and present the cases for each of the options to the members for discussion and ultimately support. Given the government's sharpening of focus to a pathfinder group of 3 counties, which does not include Surrey, we quickly modified KPMG's brief to focus on identifying those services and areas where boroughs and districts and county can work together better to deliver for our residents. One of the main reasons there was the appetite for change was the recognition that we could all do better, and I look forward to seeing the opportunities identified and delivered. I've also said that gypsy and traveller issues are one of my main priorities and something that we as a council have to get to grips with. We are beginning to make progress on a number of areas. The executive agreed to provide over £200,000 of funding for increased security on a number of green spaces we own. The consultation with residents will begin shortly, and we've promised that agreed security measures will be in place in the most vulnerable sites before next summer. That's to guard against unauthorised encampments. We've also identified 2 potential sites for permanent gypsy and traveller sites. The one in Lightwater was given planning permission recently, and we're committed to carrying out a viability study on Watchmore Nature Reserve to see if that is a possible site. I also recently visited a potential transit site in the east of the county with some fellow leaders and officers from the county council. The site is ideal for a transit site, and the county and local borough have committed to moving forward as quickly as possible, subject, of course, to planning permission. If this site comes into being, the police will have the ability to exercise stronger powers to move unauthorised encampments on virtually immediately, which I know will be a great help to our residents. Finally, I've been working with Mr. Passion on our potential responses to the expected economic fallout from the COVID crisis. We're already seeing large increases in unemployment. Surrey Heath saw the largest increase in applications for universal credit in the county. With unemployment comes increased financial problems, debt, poverty, food poverty, particularly with children. Domestic abuse rises, as does homelessness. I'm sure everyone in the chamber would agree that these are the issues this council needs to be focusing on, and I will do my best to ensure we provide as much support as we can to those residents who need us. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, declaration of interest. Do any members have a disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare in relation to the matters which are to be considered at this meeting? No, thank you. Agenda item 6. I am advised that 9 questions have been received from members of the public under Council Procedure Rule 10. The Constitution says that a period of 15 minutes will be allocated to questions from members of the public. However, as we have received an unprecedented number, I have agreed with all group leaders that we will not be strict about restricting this item to 15 minutes. Is that okay, members? Thank you. I will take these questions in order in which they were received. Question 1, Mr. Wilson, would you like to read out your first question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do the members representing Bagshot, that's Councillors White and Fitzgerald, and the Council generally agree with Surrey County Council plans to have a one-way system in Bagshot High Street? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I am advised that the Leader of the Council will respond to this question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Although I can't respond directly on behalf of the Bagshot Ward Councillors, I can advise that following consultation with the Ward Councillors, officers from this council advised Surrey County Council in the strongest possible terms in June 2020 that there was no support for this measure.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. Mr. Wilson, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you for the answer, Leader. Given that, would you undertake then to write to Surrey County Council again and including the local county councillor to let them know about the strength of feeling from residents and business owners locally about this proposal? The County Council's consultation and including their proposal website has responses from residents, 155 so far, overwhelmingly negative to the proposal, ranging from it being a complete waste of money onto business owners who fear they may go out of business due to the loss of trade. So would you be prepared to write again to the County Council, including the local County Councillor? Thank you.
Would the Leader like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Wilson, I would be delighted to write to the County Council with as much strength as I possibly can. It's very important that if something is not working, then it should be reviewed, and we should be allowed to change our minds or have the county change their minds if something isn't working. So the short answer is yes, I'd be delighted to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty, and thank you, Mr. Wilson, for your question. Question 2. Mr. Wilson, would you like to read out your second question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My second question is, given the increasing frequency of extreme weather events caused by climate change, is the Council confident in the flood prevention plans in place for Surrey Heath, in particular the village wards, for the coming winter and spring? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm advised that the Environmental and Health Portfolio Holder will respond to this question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Wilson, for your question. The Council takes the risk of flooding in the borough very seriously. We've worked with partners in the Surrey Local Resilience Forum and local communities in the development of comprehensive plans for dealing with flooding incidents. These plans are regularly reviewed and tested by running exercises internally and with partners in the LRF. A winter resilience workshop is being held across the 11 district and boroughs later this month. This will include flooding. The Council employs a drainage engineer who has done a lot of work to introduce and maintain flooding mitigation schemes across the borough. These schemes have proved to be very successful in preventing flooding in the times of heavy and prolonged rainfall. This was witnessed only recently, in fact, in areas that we have had flooding, certainly in the villages that I'm involved in, to do with Bisley and also Chobham, and also the area around West End at Brook Place. We can never be 100% sure that these measures will be successful, but we believe we're doing as much as we can Our emergency planners would be more than happy to discuss these schemes with local communities and amend the plans as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Mr Wilson, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mansfield, for the reply. Given that you said we can never be 100% sure when it comes to flooding prevention, I noticed in the draft accounts for the council for the previous financial year, there was an underspend of £41,000 on flood alleviation. Would it be possible for that money to be rolled over into the current financial year and spent quickly before this winter to increase the confidence in flood prevention in the villages? Because ditching time saves 9. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned, we have the LRF team, and we are at the moment having a resilience workshop that's being held across the 11 districts and boroughs. And if there is a further need for funding, yes, it will be provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield, and thank you, Mr Wilson, for your second question. Question 3, I'd like to invite Richard Payne to read out the question from Alan Ashbury.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are already a number of empty premises on Frimley High Street, and I am concerned that once the full effects of the current pandemic are realised, many businesses currently trading will struggle financially, particularly as it looks like further restrictions are to be introduced in the coming weeks and months. Frimley High Street needs to remain a hub for local residents who do not have the ability to travel further afield to access the businesses they need. Can you please advise what measures Surrey Heath Borough Council are proposing to support existing businesses to remain viable, and what incentives are being offered to attract new businesses onto the High Street?
I advise that the Leader of the Council will respond to the question on behalf of the Business and Transformation Portfolio Holder, who has provided his response to the Leader prior to the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We agree that Frimley is a key area to those residents, businesses and visitors who use the shops and services along Frimley High Street. Surrey Heath Borough Council was an intrinsic part of setting up the Frimley Business Association, as well as being continuously available to the businesses in Frimley and in the whole of the borough to provide support in times of difficulty. 2 businesses have been supported through a shopfront grant, and all of the ratepayers with a retail, hospitality or leisure premises have been supported through the business rates grant scheme and the discretionary grant schemes through the COVID-19 pandemic. The Economic Development Department is a contact point for the Frimley Business Association and businesses in Frimley, and will support where possible. Economic development has been where possible. Economic Development has contacted those responsible for the premises in Frimley, which are empty, twice in 2019 and once since the pandemic in 2020. But unfortunately, due to the types of businesses who own these units, mostly investment portfolios, it has proven difficult to gain traction in communications to understand their future plans for their investments. This means that the council has little influence over the businesses which take on leases or who may be attracted to the area. However, it does form part of the team's work to support the lettings in the town and making businesses aware of the location and the opportunities, and we work with commercial agents to support this where possible. Discussions around the road infrastructure continue with Surrey County Highways, ensuring that the issues arising in this area continue to be discussed and solutions sought. We will continue to work with the ward councillors and businesses, and as with the rest of the borough, will form part of the Buy Local campaign in the lead up to Christmas and beyond.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. As he was unable to attend this meeting, Mr Ashbury was given the opportunity to submit a supplementary question in advance. Again, Mr Payne will read out the supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On this occasion, no supplementary question was received.
Thank you. Go to question 4. Mrs Noble would like to read Mrs. Noble, would you like to read out your question? Mrs. Noble, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 2014, Highways England consulted on a 60-mile-an-hour limit between junctions 3 and 4 of the M3 to reduce air pollution, and particularly pollution from nitrogen dioxide and particulates. In 2018, Blackwater Valley Friends of the Earth recorded levels of 68 and 83 micrograms of NO2 against a legal limit of 40 micrograms. There is now a reduced speed limit on the A331. 37 deaths each year are attributed to air pollution in Surrey Heath. Given that there is an unknown link between nitrogen dioxide from vehicle exhausts and its likelihood of increasing respiratory problems, that there are concerns that COVID-19 sufferers may encounter long-term respiratory problems post-recovery, that SHBC's 2019 Air Quality Annual Status Report in fulfilment of Part 4 of the Environment Act, published in June 19, shows recorded levels still in excess of the legal limit at the Brick Hill testing site, and that it's not unusual to have to queue for exceptionally long periods of time at the A322 Lightwater bypass to reach the M3 junction, 1 hour on a Saturday lunchtime. Highways England responded to our MP in June 2020 that they would update him on the reinstatement of the traffic modelling exercise by the 31st of August 2020, and there has been no public notification of that update. Having travelled that route regularly over the last 27 years, it's always seemed to me that the phasing of the lights between the northbound exit slip and the Bagshot A322 exit is the cause of Lightwater, West End and Bisley residents' misery at trying to get across the roundabout. This is borne out as when pedestrians repeatedly stop the traffic on the roundabout by pressing the pedestrian crossing light between the southbound M3 exit and the A322 Lightwater exit, the queue on the Lightwater A322 moves faster. What action can Surrey Heath Borough Council take in the interim to avoid traffic diverting into the side roads to go through Lightwater Village itself, and to avoid or reduce the queues on the A322 until a more permanent solution can be found? And how quickly could an adjustment to the phasing be implemented to alleviate the problem? How quickly could a temporary change be implemented to reduce the problem, which will only get worse when traffic returns to pre-COVID levels? Thank you.
Thank you. I am advised that the Environmental and Health Portfolio Holder will respond to the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Noble, for your question. I'm aware of the health impacts of air pollution, particularly nitrogen dioxide and particulates. The Council has for many years been monitoring air pollution across the borough and has implemented a number of measures to improve air quality. The annual Air Quality Status Report 2020 is being finalised and will be presented to the Executive and the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee. The report will include a revised air quality strategy. I will ensure that your concerns regarding the phasing of traffic lights, which lead to long queues on the A322 and the diversion of traffic through Lightwater Village, are forwarded to the Highway Authority for a response. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Mrs. Noble, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
No, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you.
Question 5. I would like to invite Richard Payne to read out the question from Jacques Olmo.
Madam Mayor, with the easing of lockdown restrictions, we've seen a return to the long-standing problem of speeding in Mitchett. Hainsmoor Road by Mitchett Primary School, Colford Bridge Road and Mitchett Road being particular hotspots. What can Surrey Heath Borough Council do to pressure Surrey County Council into finally sticking to their promises and doing something about this issue? Our Frimley Green, Mitchett and Deepcut County Councillor has long promised change. We need actions, not more empty words.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. I'm advised that the lead of the council will respond to this question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was disappointed to read Mr. Olmo's comments regarding we need actions and not more empty words. So I spoke to the local county councillor about this, and I'm afraid Mr. Olmo appears to not be up to speed with everything that the county councillor has been doing. The county councillor has arranged for speed surveys, VES signs to be repaired or replaced, foliage to be cut back to ensure signs are clear, the zebra crossing lights to be upgraded. He's met with numerous organisations, including the primary school, and organised a community watch scheme. He's currently working on getting a VES sign installed on Colford Road in order to help slow down traffic. However, highway matters, including issues relating to speeding, are not directly the responsibility of the borough council. However, a report on a revised community infrastructure levy scheme will be considered by the executive next week. Once we've agreed a revised SIL funding bidding process, which will make money available to community groups and ward councillors more easily, I would suggest that in order to assist with addressing this matter, local ward councillors and possibly the chairman of the local area committee could approach Surrey County Council with VES signs, and if Surrey County Council show there is a case, then we could consider a bid to part fund these with the county using this local SIL money in the area referred to in question. Parkside councillors have recently done this.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. As he was unable to attend this meeting, Mr. Olmo was given the opportunity to submit a supplementary question in advance. Again, Mr. Payne, will you read out the supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The supplementary question is where and when in Parkside has this already happened, and how long should residents expect to wait before a solution is implemented?
Would the leader like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Parkside VES was provided by Surrey County Council following a bid from the Parkside ward councillors and funded from SIL, and has been installed on Portsmouth Road. For Mitchell is for residents and or councillors to agree a scheme and costings with the county. County have to agree if it is needed, and to make a bid on that basis. So timing depends on the residents and the county.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. Question 8. Sorry, it's question 6. Dr. Kang, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What does Surrey Heath Borough Council think of the government's plans to change the law regarding on-street parking, particularly taking into account the effect this will have on local schools that have no car park available to them?
Thank you. I'm advised that the support and safeguarding portfolio holder will respond to the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Calm. Although the management of on-street parking is not a Surrey Heath Borough Council function, we do recognise the impact that pavement parking can have on borough residents. The government is currently consulting on proposed changes to the management of pavement parking nationally, which could see civil parking powers increased to further prohibit this activity. We appreciate that in certain areas, the pavement is the only place to park without obstructing the roads. However, we also acknowledge the dangers this can present to pedestrians, particularly for those with disabilities and small children. We await the outcome of the consultation with interest.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Dr. Kang, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. As I said, just to say it's Dr. Kang, not Dr. Khan. So Dr. Kang, okay. Yes, this is, as a resident in Parkside, I feel really let down by my local councillors. Ed Hawkins is my county and borough councillor, and schools and roads are county issues. Josephine Hawkins is my borough councillor and is the portfolio holder responsible for community safety and our children's champion. Why have both taken no action to deal with the dangerous situation at Ravenscote Primary School. The Pelican Crossing campaign for Ravenscote has been active for over 2 years. And now there's no proper crossing there. And if urgent action is not taken by Surrey County Council, there will be a serious accident. What can this borough do to ensure it is safe for our children to go to school?
Thank you. Would the portfolio holder like to respond to the question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies, Dr. Kang. I haven't heard from you personally before, nor I believe my husband, who's a county councillor. I know there has been a problem regarding Ravenscote School, and I also know that County Councillor Edward Hawkins met recently there with our MP, and I think there are ongoing plans. What they are, I cannot say. You will have to approach him direct, but that isn't really about about the parking on pavements. If you wish anything further, I can send you a written reply. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Kang, for your question.
Thank you.
Question 7. Miss Lisa Feenan-Cook, would you like to read out your question? Ms. Lisa Feenan-Cook, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies, I think there is some delay when people are being added. As many of you will know, I'm a resident of Watches Ward and have been an active member of my community since I moved here over 16 years ago. Like the neighbouring ward of St Michael's, we have suffered from overdevelopment in the past, resulting in levels of development in recent years, quite rightly, being very low. The knock-on effect of this is that we have had little to no SIL money available, and as a result, our amenities have had next to no investment. Green spaces such as Crabtree Park, Orchard Way Playground, Watchmore Nature Reserve, and the area of land to the rear of Bain Avenue have been left wanting when it comes to maintaining and increasing the quality of these spaces. Clearly, the current arrangements for the distribution of SIL money across the borough is a challenge for Surrey Heath Borough Council. Wards like ours could be perceived to be left to being rotting. What plans has the council to ensure that this does not happen?
Thank you. I'm advised that the finance portfolio holder will respond to the question.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question. I'm sure you'll be delighted to know that the council have also been thinking about the redistribution of SIL money, and there'll be an agenda item coming before executive next week proposing the pooling of SIL money for future projects. I'm sure you're also aware that in 2016, some planning infrastructure contributions, which was a predecessor to SIL, was released to refurbish play areas in Watchets. These were assessed on a priority basis, and several play areas have now been refurbished. Although it didn't make the list on that occasion, I have assurances that Orchard Way play area is now top of the list for refurbishment once SIL pooling has been approved. With respect to Crabtree Park, due to issues that relate to it being a former landfill, we're currently unable to consider the installation of new or additional equipment due to the required depth of any foundations. However, the park is managed and maintained to the same standard as all borough parks and green spaces. Watchmore Nature Reserve is also managed and maintained as part of the council's green space portfolio. They are unaware of any requests for additional investment at this site, but would of course welcome suggestions from local residents. And last but not least, and I know you're involved in this, but for the benefit of any Watchets residents who may be watching, the council's community development team are currently in discussions with ward members and local residents regarding a potential community-led project on the small piece of amenity space that sits between Bain Avenue and the railway track. I hope this information reassures you, and thank you again for your question.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Ms. Feenan-Cook, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, I would, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I am really heartened to hear that the SIL scheme is being reviewed. And I would just like to urge the executive to really consider that and consider the fair distribution of SIL money. And I'd particularly like to ask Councillors Lewis, Dugan and McClafferty, given that their wards are very overdeveloped, to commit to voting to change the SIL scheme so that we can all benefit fairly.
Would the portfolio holder like to respond to the question?
Right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, my mouse broke down. Yes, I will be on the executive meeting next week, and I will be voting in favour of pooling SIL resources.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis, and thank you, Ms Finnan-Cook, for your question. Now, question 8. Ms Kel Finnan-Cook, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today, members of the executive will have received email copies of photographs of the flooding at Watchmore Nature Reserve, which occurred over the weekend of the 3rd and 4th of October. This is by no means a one-off occurrence, and users of the reserve witnessed this after every heavy rainfall or prolonged rainfall. Our community group, Save Watchmore Reserve, cannot fathom why the council believes that this land is suitable for human habitation, not only because of the flooding issue, but also due to the noise and air pollution. It's also worth noting, so that all are aware, that a study completed by the Freshwater Habitat Trust identified the presence of great crested newts, a protected species. This land is perfect for wildlife. At your last meeting, you voted to undertake a feasibility study. We have received information that suggests this feasibility study has not yet been commissioned, but is due to be finished in spring. The council may be aware that it's impossible to assess the reserve for the presence of great crested newts during this time of year. The nearest available opportunity to do so would be early summer. We would like to ask the council who will be completing this feasibility study, how they will consult with residents, and how much has been budgeted by Surrey Heath Borough Council to cover the costs of the study. Given all currently known factors, it is likely to deem the reserve unsuitable.
Thank you. I am advised that the leader of the council will respond to the question.
Hello, Ms Finnan-Cook. Good to see you again. Right. All the points you brought up are exactly why the work proposed as an initial feasibility study. I recognise, as you and a number of residents have pointed out about flooding, I got the photographs, thank you, and also the natural issues that you deem to be there. The council will be examining all of the evidence we have on the site and consulting with bodies such as Surrey Wildlife Trust, BVCS, the Environment Agency, and others to understand the impact of these and other issues on the site. This initial feasibility work will be carried out in-house. A report will go back to the executive advising of initial findings, and if further work is justified, a request for funding for 21-22 will to carry out further investigations, including wildlife surveys and flooding, will be made. There's no funding allocated in the 2020-21 budget for consultants for this work.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. Ms Finnan-Cook, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. I wonder if it could be explained why, during the executive meeting, Councillor McClafferty stated that he would appreciate our help in finding more appropriate land for the GRT community. Yet my freedom of information request, seeking a list of the rejected sites, all 107 of them, was rejected. We've made it perfectly clear that we would like to work with the council as a group to find more appropriate land, but our freedom of information request was rejected. And was this just lip service?
Would the leader like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay. I got your request originally for it was 108, I believe, was the number of sites that the council reviewed. And I got your request to have those. As you know, as we've been communicating, I'm working on trying to get permission for those 108 to be released. There are issues around commercial viability, there's issues around GDPR, which is why I believe the Freedom of Information Act said, reply said no. But what I am doing is I'm trying to get to a position where we can identify what land has been looked at and what else we can look at, and I'm very, very keen to work with you. It is by no means, I would hope that you were the same as when you talked to me previously. You saw that it is with reluctance that this council is even looking at Watchmore Nature Reserve. And if we could find another place, I guarantee I will do everything I possibly can to make sure that we try and find a better alternative space.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McLafferty.
Thank you, Councillor McLafferty, and thank you, Ms Finnan-Cook, for your question. Question 9. Mr. Lee, would you like to read out your question? Mr. Lee, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Fabulous. So thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing the additional time for questions. And special thanks to Kate, who I understand is the lady behind the scenes managing the Zoom, an unsung hero. Councillor Dugan, during the first lockdown, a sign in Camberley Town Centre clearly announced businesses are open as usual as part of the ongoing works. As you can imagine, this is somewhat artistic at best and insulting at worst, given most, if not all, were told to close in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Are they under or over budget, and by how much? When were the works meant to be finished, and when will they be finished? And can you offer a guarantee that the parking and access will be fully back to normal by the Christmas trading period? Traditionally a time when most trade at their best to cover quieter months, and I'm guessing there's probably been a few of those recently.
I'm advised that the Leader of the Council will respond to the question on behalf of the Business and Transformation Portfolio Holder, who has provided his response to the Leader prior to the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Lee. The business as usual signs went up pre-COVID when the regeneration work started on the high street, and due to, as you can imagine, the restrictions on time, the focus of the officers on things that were deemed to be far more important at the time during the crisis, they were not taken down during the COVID crisis. As most businesses have now reopened, it is appropriate that the signs remain in place. The final costs outturn for the works is awaited, but costs will have increased due to COVID-19 and problems with the utilities, which caused delays early on in the project. The works are programmed to finish by March 2021 and are still on track by completion by then, which is a feat in itself, as I believe this is one of the few sites where the contractors continue to work, albeit in less numbers, to try and keep the project on course. Full vehicular access and parking will not be available in the High Street during the Christmas period. As you may well know, the design of the High Street is to have some on-street parking, albeit less than previously. We're currently working with the traders to minimise any impact on servicing the shops, etc. Parking charges will apply throughout Christmas, although Thursday evenings from 5 p.m. parking costs will be £1 overnight in both car parks, and this is our annual process. We also continue to offer the 2 hours free parking at Knoll Road, as previously agreed by the executive, to support our stores.
Mr. Lee, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Madam Mayor, you're very kind, if I may. On top of spending over £100 million on retail property in Camberley, a substantial overpayment of its market value, at a time when everybody knows that retail has been moving online over the last decade, maybe even the last 2 decades now, to be honest. You now seem determined to drive the remaining businesses into the ground by these long delayed and now quite clearly substantially over budget works. Is there anything that the administration can do correctly to support our businesses locally in their desperate hours of need?
the leader like to respond to the question?
I certainly would. Okay. You bring up the amount of property that we have invested in the town square. You're correct, it's over £100 million, and there's no doubting that the value of that asset has decreased, particularly with COVID. However, that decrease would only ever be realised, as with negative equity, if we were to sell the asset, which this council will not do in the next 50 years. So there's going to be no impact from that. What it does do is that it was made clear by the previous owners of the town centre that they had no intention whatsoever of investing in our centre. And we as a council chose not to just stand idly by, as some people would have us do, and watch the town centre become some kind of withering on the vine, empty place that nobody ever came. Instead, we chose to take the far more decisive route of investing in the town centre, not only buying the property, but also refurbing and regenerating the town. And the town centre has continued to provide surplus, which now enables us to deliver our services. The high street, as you pointed out, is actually on time. It will create a much better environment, which will be mainly pedestrianised for our residents. And in terms of delivering, I believe this council has delivered. I don't believe that we have overpaid, but we've agreed with the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee that we should spend what is still a substantial sum, and I'm not sure that it's actually going to be useful to do, but we're going to look back at the amount of money that we spent on the town centre and the advice we got, and we will determine whether we overpaid, as you say. In terms of online shopping, you're absolutely right. The COVID crisis has generated a time jump for retail. Some experts have said retail has jumped 5 years forward, and online, which used to be something in the region of 15%, is probably now 20, 25%. So it is massive, but our shops and our retail are something that our residents absolutely want to remain there, and this council is committed to keeping and getting the town centre to be as vibrant as possible over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Your passion is appreciated for the purchase. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty, and thank you, Mr. Lee, for your question. Agenda item 7, questions from councillors. 2 questions have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 11. A question from Councillor Helen Whitcroft has been received for the Chairman of Planning Applications Committee, and a question from Councillor Morgan Rise has been submitted for the Finance Portfolio Holder. These questions have been circulated, and I will take them in the order they have been received. Councillor Whitcroft, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, please. My question, I understand that the Council will not be defending a decision made by the Planning Applications Committee in regards to a development at Chapel Lane at an upcoming public inquiry. Given that this was unanimously refused by the committee, please could the leader or the chairman of the committee explain this decision and the process by which it was made? As a member of the Planning Applications Committee, I would like some reassurance that voting at planning meetings is not now irrelevant and that the Constitution will be reviewed to avoid any such misunderstandings in the future.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Edward Hawkins to respond to the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me? For the first time ever, I'm going through my iPad and I'm not sure if I've got the volume right. Can somebody wave if you can hear me? Ah, hello, I'll wave back. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Whitcroft. In fact, Mrs. Rickard wrote to all the planning committee, yourself included, on the 30th of September, outlining the reasons for, or the background of what has happened. I don't propose to go through what she said at that stage, but the important element of that, and I was part of that decision process, make no bones about it. We had a long and detailed debate on that. And at that time, at the time of the termination of the application, the council had a 5-year housing supply. and this site was included in that supply. The planning committee viewed that 5-year supply from memory and said that this site, if the decision was taken to refuse, it was not necessarily going to impact on that supply. Surrey Heath Borough Council then appointed a consultant and a barrister to defend the case. You know, it was refused, it went to appeal, we know that. The council appointed a consultant and a barrister to defend the case, and had submitted initial evidence and information required by the planning inspectorate, and was liaising with the residents all through the process. In fact, I met some on site when I was down there with County Highways. The council had been attending case management conferences, and in June, the planning inspector requested an update on the housing land supply figures. This is important. That work was completed in mid-August, at which point it became quite clear that the council no longer had a 5-year housing land supply. From that point onwards, the advice the council was receiving from the appointed advisors was that they did not feel able to continue defending the case. This put the officers and the councillors, and particularly the officers who are professional advisors, in a very difficult position of knowing that we had unanimously refused the application, that residents expected us to defend it, but the case was now indefensible. So to continue raised the increasing risk of significant costs being awarded against the Borough Council and its taxpayers. Over the course of a week, there were 3 meetings between officers, the leader and myself, and the advisors. In fact, on one of them, I was on the phone for about an hour and a half. I was away for 3 days, my holiday this year, and we had long conversations on that. And then we also met to discuss the situation with residents and their advisors. This last meeting occurring on a Friday. On the Monday, the following Monday, we had to make the decision on what to tell the planning inspectorate, i.e. to continue with no representation and no supply, or to withdraw. We chose at that point in time, on the advice of the professional advisors, to withdraw, and the residents were fully aware of that situation. Some of that is outlined in Mrs. Rickard's letter to you. Your question is 2 parts, and the second part is I think it's quite slightly hurtful, actually. I'm immensely proud of the work carried out by the Planning Applications Committee. I've been a member in one form or another of that committee for some considerable years, and it is a matter of pride that I consider it to be the one truly non-political committee of the council where all officers take on the mantle of being borough councillors. They take a holistic view on borough issues. You know, to ask if it's irrelevant when you yourself have inputted quite heavily into the workings of the council, I find surprising and disappointing. I can assure you completely. I mean, I've served with a number of very good vice chairman. I have an excellent vice chairman at the moment. No names, no pat drill. So, but let me show I'm particularly happy with the help that that particular councillor gives. You know, officers and the vice chairman and I spend an awful lot of time reviewing the work of the planning work of the council and defending the decisions of the committee and the councillors on it. You know, in an ideal world, yes, we would have gone back to the Planning Applications Committee, but on this one, but the decision had to be made quickly following the meetings, and there just was not the time, because that was the Friday night, and then the inspector conference was on the Monday morning. You know, quite frankly, nobody in the council has been faced with a situation like this before, and particularly when the professional advisors have threatened to withdraw from the case. You know, we did not like it at all. I think Councillor McClafferty was on that, and he was, in his usual understated style, was less than impressed with the professional advisors, and they were left in no doubt about that. You know, and I can assure you, be working exceptionally hard to ensure that this situation does not occur again. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Whitcroft, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, yes. My supplementary question, thank you very much, Councillor Hawkins. For the record, I am not, I apologise if you feel my comments are hurtful. That's certainly not the intention that I mean to give. However, I'm going to go on and say you refer to the letter that was sent by Mrs. Rickard on the 30th of September. However, unfortunately, this doesn't alter the fact that this decision was made and confirmed on social media on the 24th of September. So it has taken some 6 days between the announcement of this on social media and any correspondence between yourself, given that I'd also wrote to you, not once but twice, asking you to explain this. And it took some 6 days before we received a response of any kind as us members, who in the meantime are obviously having comments from the public asking for the position, why the council has taken the view they have, and this is the best part of a week that we're unable to give the answers. The other question that comes, if I may, is the question of costs. I noticed that on the planning portal this week there has now become a claim for costs from Carla Holmes in respect of the work they've done thus far in terms of this case. I wonder, please, if you might be able to give some indication as to how much these costs are likely to be, in the sense of the value as Carla Holmes's costs are likely to be, and then a separate figure in terms of what the costs to Surrey Heath are likely to be for the work that we have already undertaken and now withdrawn.
Right, okay. Firstly, yes, you did contact me twice, and I forwarded your letter on to Mrs. Rickard, and it was a question of timing, people not being around. Why it went out on social media, I mean, well, I think my views on those social media are well known. It isn't always everybody's friend, but I think we kept the residents. I think the important element on this is, yes, in an ideal world, we could have got back together again, but we kept and we are continuing to support the residents. They were informed all the way through of the decision with the legal team, and we're doing that. The issue of costs, I don't know. It's quite simply, the inspectorate will decide on the cost as normal is normal in these cases, but I will have a conversation with Mrs. Rickard and get back to you within, if we can have a week, please, just to see if she has any further views on the likelihood of cost. I think a lot depends on we move into the areas of legality and whether the inspector feels that our refusal was flippant or was inappropriate, which has happened before. We've been criticised in the past, but not for cost, because of decisions taken by the committee, which the committee took in good faith. But as far as the actual quantum, at this point in time, no, I don't know. But I will speak with Mrs. Rickard and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. That's Councillor Whitcroft. Question 2. Councillor Rise, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the commitment from the Conservative government to provide coronavirus funding to local authorities now no longer forthcoming, can the portfolio holder for finance confirm how much of the reserves will be used to fill the funding gap caused by the coronavirus pandemic, and what financial preparation has been undertaken to mitigate any further potential lockdown in Surrey Heath?
I invite the finance portfolio holder to respond to this question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the current year, financial year 2020-21, the government has undertaken to pay over a grant of 71.25% of any shortfall in income from fees and charges that impact on the council as a result of the coronavirus. Claims are submitted on a 4-monthly basis, and the grant claim for April to July 2020 was £527,000. The government has also announced an expanded retail discount that provides 100% business rates discount for eligible heredaments occupied by businesses that are classified in the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors, regardless of rateable value, and which are subject to business rates in the year 2020-21. Surrey Heath, the total tax liability is £16,220,211, impacting on 574 businesses. As part of the annual budget exercise, officers and members of the executive are currently reviewing spend and income to date in the current financial year against the budget set in February 2020, and projecting the likely outturn for the financial year 2021 and the implications for financial year 21-22. At this stage, it's too early to say what recourse, if any, to reserves the council might require to balance next year's budget. But in any event, these will be kept to a minimum. And if some use of reserves is required, the council's 5-year medium-term financial plan will be amended to ensure that the amount of reserves used is replenished within the planning period. The budget for 21-22 will include contingencies to support the communities we serve in the event of a future lockdown in Surrey Heath. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rise, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the finance portfolio holder agree with me that continuing to use the reserves to fill gaps of annual spending, to fill day-to-day spending, is not a sustainable course of action when we may have to rely on the reserves to fill further funding gaps caused by a crisis such as coronavirus, and how we have already seen the impact that this crisis can cause? Thank you.
Councillor Lewis, would you like to respond now or supply a written response?
I think in this instance, I will need more data, so I will supply a written response.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving to agenda item 8, executive committees and other bodies. Can I have a proposal for the executive minutes and the recommendations at minute 38(e) and 41(e) as set out in the agenda paper?
Madam Mayor, I would like to move that the minutes of the executive of the 21st of July, the 11th of August and the 15th of September 2020 be received and the recommendations approved.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second those minutes. Thank you.
Are you happy to receive the minutes and agree the recommendations? Can I have a proposer for the Planning Application Committee minutes?
Sorry, Madam Mayor. It's heavy fingers on my iPad. I wish to present the minutes of the Planning Applications Committee for the 16th of July, 13th of August and 17th of September. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second those minutes.
Members, I have to receive the minutes. Thank you. Members, I've been advised that the Employment Committee minutes from October 2020 are still being drafted. At the Employment Committee meeting on 8th of October, the committee made 2 recommendations which have been circulated. The recommendations concern a revised member and officer protocol and a recommendation to enter into an agreement with Elmbridge Borough Council to provide a monitoring officer function. Can I have a proposer for the Employment Committee minutes from the 9th of July 2020 and the recommendation from October the 8th, 2020?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the absence of the chairman of the committee, I would like to propose that the minutes be adopted.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second that proposal.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes and agree the recommendations? Thank you. Can I have a proposal for the Licensing Committee minutes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose that the Licensing Committee minutes of the 29th of July 2020 are received at this meeting.
Do you have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Thank you. Can I have a proposer for the External Partnership Select Committee minutes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to propose the adoption of the minutes of the meeting of the 8th of September.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second the adoption of those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Can I have a proposer for the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee minutes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose the adoption of the minutes of the Performance and Finance, Joint Staff Consultative Group.
Jump the gun there, Graham, I think.
Apologies, I've got one item ahead of myself.
I need a proposer for the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to propose a Performance of Finance Scrutiny Committee meeting date to the 9th of September to be adopted, please.
Have a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second those minutes.
Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Thank you. Can I have a proposer for the notes of the Joint Staff Consultative Group?
I think this is my turn now, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Yes, I would like to formally propose the adoption of the minutes of the Joint Staff Consultative Group, the 24th of September 2020. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second the Joint Staff Consultative Group minutes of the 24th of September.
Members, are you happy to receive these notes? Thank you. You want to break 5 minutes? Members, we will now take a comfort break for 5 minutes. Thank you. I don't know. What about all here? Yeah. Welcome back, members. I would like to ask Councillor Graham Alloway to move his motion and indicate if he wishes to reserve his right to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to speak and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alloway. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to second that motion and reserve the right to speak upon the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Alloway, would you like to speak on your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I've proposed the motion regarding pre-applications to essentially establish clarity, openness, surety, certainty, communications protocols and expectations for the topic of pre-apps. Clarity by having a process defined following local government association guidelines. Openness for member awareness. Surety for having a defined process. Certainty in respect to member involvement as appropriate and desired by the member. Communications having protocols including confidentiality commitments and expectations in so much as members can deliver local input for early concepts in order to aid a successful application where appropriate. I feel there is an opportunity for constructive input from ward councillors at the concept stages to represent known residents' valid concerns. It should be an essential ingredient to achieve a proposal that should result in less objection, committee overturns and reduced call-ins. The potential gain in reaching acceptable proposals first time is the goal. I am conscious of the planning white paper that alludes to eradicating the traditional means of scrutiny of applications, but I perceive considerable public and councillors' concerns over the removal of democratic scrutiny. The white paper may change from consultation review, but in any case, we should have something in place for the meantime. I feel the members would benefit from having a clear pre-apps process in place. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Alloway. Councillor Wheeler, would you like to speak to your motion?
I reserve the right to come back at a later date, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I would like you to invite members to discuss the motion and make any comments. Councillor McClafferty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is an excellent motion and I certainly will be supporting it. I don't believe Mr. Ramatol is in the monitoring officer is on the call or on the meeting today.
He's with us, Councillor.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yes.
I just was looking for. I don't think it needs an amendment, but I just was looking for some confirmation. The only concern I had, and I spoke to Councillor Alloway about this earlier today, was that it's absolutely a good idea that the local ward councillors are aware of what's going on or potentially what's going on in their wards, and we need a mechanism in order to get that information out to the ward councillors. But I feel that it's absolutely essential that that information is given in the strictest confidence and that it doesn't go out. So I would just ask the monitoring officer if he is confident that the system that would be installed by the officers to fulfill this motion would be on the basis that the confidentiality would be strictly with the ward councillors and would not be published.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor McClafferty. And I think it's entirely feasible to develop a process which includes confidentiality within it. So that could either be on the application itself. So when the applicant fills in the form for a pre-application, they can tick at that point whether they want the pre-application to be confidential, because they may actually be happy for it to be open. So assuming the applicant confirms that they want it to remain confidential, then we can incorporate into the process the strict requirements around confidentiality. So I think that's entirely feasible.
Thank you. If Councillor Alloway is happy with that, then I'd be very happy to support the motion.
Thank you.
Yes, if I may just say, I'm happy with that proposal. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Edward Hawkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I too have had conversation with Councillor Alloway on this, and a high degree of sympathy with him. As councillors, we get a weekly list of applications submitted in our, well, it's right across the borough, in fact, and obviously all councillors have the opportunity of requesting further information, etc., calling in or wanting to meet with the officers to discuss an application so that they can give their views. But I understand that that isn't really what Councillor Alloway is seeking here. He wants to be able to, as I understand it, to put a, if you like, a local perspective on an application, to meet with developers and really to say that the residents here really want to see 10 stories rather than a bungalow. I use that a rather extreme example. And I have said to Councillor Alloway that, yeah, I fully get, I understand where he's coming from. My concern is predetermination. And I think that this is the area that we've all got to be terribly careful about. It's not just Councillor Alloway. This, if the rules change, we all have this opportunity of meeting with developers. We do have the opportunity of meeting with developers through the design process, where a design meeting is held. The ward councillors are always invited. But we've got to be very careful on predetermination, that we don't say things that we might have to repeat when as and when an application comes to the planning committee. That is my amber flag, if you like, that I would like to hoist this. But I do understand from conversation with Mrs. Rickard that there will be a confidential list circulated monthly as at the from the end of November onwards, which will let ward councillors know, recognising that some developers don't always want, for their own reasons, to be involved in the conversations with the councillor at the onset. But I think the view, my understanding from conversation with Mrs. Rickard, is that she will circulate a list, that not Mrs. Rickard, but the officers will circulate a list as from the end of November, and the ward councillor can then say, I would like to come and see this, meet with this developer, and that would be arranged. But I just have my warning flag hoisted, and I know Councillor Alloway fully understands, and he is likewise slightly nervous as well, as I believe. I'm sorry, Councillor Alloway, if I'm putting words describing an action that you're not comfortable with. But I mean, there have been very few pre-application discussions with developers, in fact, in both Bisley and in West End over the last 6 months. Be as it may, the opportunities there, it's right that this goes into place, and I will be supporting it reservedly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's really important for us to remember sort of there's a difference between predisposition and predetermination. And I actually think that with appropriate notes on training, that if we are conducting the pre-application discussions with councillors in as public and as transparent a way as possible, and there is some form of public file note produced by the officers on anything that is considered in the outcome, that we will remain in a very good and safe place. There is a number of legislative guidance on this, which I'm sure we will be referring to, not least the planning officer's guidance of 2014, which does clearly outset a good way forward for this. I'm really pleased and encouraged, I have to say, to hear the noises from other members to actually support this. I think it's something that will be very beneficial for all concerned. So that's my only comments on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Mansfield, sorry, I can't see you on my screen.
No worries, I'm still here. I'd just like to say that I also fully support both what the leader said, and I fully support Councillor Alloway's resolution. I think that, yes, I appreciate the list of the calling goes in, but this is all very much after the event. And I welcome this new opportunity to be engaged. Certainly, it's so important from the village's perspective. So I congratulate, and I certainly fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alloway, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Just to say I'm encouraged by the comments and support, and hope it will be very successful with the due process put in place to alleviate those concerns of confidentiality, which I fully appreciate is important. But I think the benefits will hopefully outweigh any concerns, but those can be addressed with a robust process and proper sanction for people who don't comply with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like now to move to the vote on the proposal. Members, are you happy to do it on a show of hands, or would you like a roll call? It seems to be a show of hands. It's been asked for. So could you please raise your hands if you're in favour of the motion? Members, I declare the vote was unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 10. I would like to invite the returning officer to present his report on the community governance review for the Windlesham parish.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report follows previous decisions made by the Council on the 26th of February and the 22nd of July 2020. At a consultative group meeting made up of Borough and County Ward Councillors, Windlesham Parish Council, petitioners' representatives and the local community groups held in March 2020, a compromise position on a way forward was proposed. Following a pause in the review process at the end of March due to COVID-19 restrictions, this compromise position, set out in paragraph 2.6 of the report, was agreed by the Council at the meeting in July. We've since conducted a second consultation on the proposed arrangements between the 4th of August and the 8th of September. As well as a leaflet sent to every household in the parish area, we also use social media and other news channels to publicise the consultation widely. This is set out in detail at paragraph 2.8. In total, we received 109 responses. You can see the breakdown of responses received by village in paragraph 2.10, and there are further breakdown of the responses in paragraphs 2.13, 15 and 16. Whilst you can see that there was support for the proposals, a minority of the responses questioned the expense of the consultation and the proposals, particularly in light of the current global situation. Even though we didn't receive a significant response to the consultation, the proposal is that we recommend to the Boundary Commission the changes put forward in the compromise position of the working group. I'm recommending that the current Bagshot parish ward is split into 2 parish wards for Bagshot and Windlesham North, and that the current Windlesham ward will be renamed Windlesham South. Therefore, Bagshot would be allocated 6 councillors and Windlesham North 2 councillors. This makes a total allocation of councillors as follows: 7 for Lightwater, 6 for Bagshot, and 5 for Windlesham. And this is set out in paragraph 3.3. I do not feel the response regarding a change to the parish's name was sufficient, whether in terms of numerical responses or a consistent response in favour of a possible name, to make any recommendations on this matter. Therefore, I do not intend asking council to change the name of the parish at this time. We will, however, be reminding the parish council of its right to request that this council changes the name under other legislation, and this would remain an option for the parish in the future, should it so wish. I would be recommending that these changes come into effect from 2023 at the next scheduled borough and parish elections, for the reasons set out in paragraphs 3.4 to 3.8 of this report. And just to confirm, should you agree to these recommendations this evening, they remain subject to approval by the Boundary Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. I would like to invite comments on the report and ask for a member to move a motion in respect of this report. Councillor Rebecca Jennings. Get it right a bit. Rebecca Jennings Evans, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to move that Council resolves to agree the recommendations as laid out in the report. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the officers, councillors, petitioners, community groups and residents who have over the last 18 months worked so tirelessly in difficult times to find a mutually agreeable solution for the Windlesham community. I sincerely hope that the Local Government Boundary Commission look favourably upon this review in order to right the wrongs of its own earlier review and reunite the community of Windlesham via the creation of a North and South ward for the Parish Council and facilitating a rebalance of the numbers of councillors representing those wards in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings Evans. Do you have a seconder?
I'm not sure if you can see it, but.
Sorry, oh, sorry. Okay.
Councillor Wheeler?
Well, I think it's almost a joint second by the sounds of things from Councillor White. I'm certainly very in support of this report. I think it offers a reasonable compromise and looks to address the imbalance that was forced upon Windlesham Village after the last consultation and the Boundary Commission's changes that came in. So yes, I'm very happy. I don't know if we can be joint seconders, but I'm very happy to jointly second this motion. If that's what you were intending to do, Councillor White, yes, I think it was.
Of course,
but yes,
was. Yeah.
Be very happy to second this. Thank you.
Councillor Jennings, would you like to speak on the item?
I believe I already did so that's fine.
Okay. And Councillor Wheeler, I guess you've decided you've spoken as well. Thank you. Councillor White, would you like to speak on this?
No, I think Councillor Rebecca Jennings Evans has said everything that is relevant to this. So just like to confirm that I would like to joint second it.
Right.
I believe Councillor Malvaganam is waving.
Yes, I was going to invite councillors to speak. Councillor Malvaganam.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On a very personal note and from our Liberal Democrats' point of view, I'm delighted this has come to a conclusion, satisfactory conclusion. Democracy has been served well. It's taken a bit longer than one would expect, but there again, this is how the process runs. Albeit it's been expensive to get 109 residents to respond to a survey. That's money well spent, I think, albeit there could be a lot of other comments on that factor. But we would be supporting this motion, so we can hopefully cut this conversation down very shortly. Thank you.
Any other members like to speak on this? No. Councillor Rebecca Jennings-Evans, would you like to come back? Or are you happy? No. Right. Got it. Yeah. Sorry. I've lost my phone. Let me get the paper back. Thank you, members. I would like now to move to the vote on the motion. Are you happy with a show of hands, or do you require a roll? No, show of hands. Thank you. Unanimous. Right, that's unanimous. Thank you, members. Item agenda 11. I would like to invite the leader to introduce the report on the governance working group and to move the recommendation therein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's getting late and I'll be brief. When the council decided to change the restriction on the mayor's voting on a deciding vote, I don't think we were aware, and you had to be a constitutional expert to become aware that that decision rattled through the entire council to all of the other committees below it. The governance working group was brought to their attention, and we are asking the council to resolve that the council procedure rules at part 4 section A of the constitution be updated as follows. You'll see that in 17.2, this is on page 21, the mayor's casting vote has a slight change to what we had agreed, but we think that's now much more workable. It no longer applies to the Planning Applications Committee chair. And finally, the item 12, in terms of attending the appointment subcommittee, we've opened that up because it was artificially limited. And now the governance working group is saying that it should be open to all members, as it rightly should be. I ask you to accept that motion.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Malvaganam. Do you have any?
Yes, sorry. I would second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Would you like to speak on the motion, Councillor McCafferty? No. Councillor Malvaganam?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. Members, do you have any comments? Is that agreed, members? Yep. Yeah. Agenda item 12. Report from the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee. I would like to invite Councillor Sashi Malvaganam to introduce the report of the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee and to move the recommendations therein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This was the Performance and Finance Committee meeting that was actually held last month, as the previous council had requested that we look at it. As the chair of Performance and Finance Committee, we have started a task and finish group, which first met for the first time today. Hopefully, we will come back to the council with a report by the 20th, I believe, for the next council meeting. And I would like to propose that we accept what's actually been, what we are resolving on this paper. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McBalligan. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will happily second that.
Thank you. Do members have any comments? Councillor Bates.
Just quickly, Madam Mayor, I did express some concern about this at the committee, not about the concept of it, which I agree with, but regarding the cost, having said that, I was involved in this decision at the time, and therefore, for that reason, I'm actually going to abstain in this vote.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor McClafferty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wonder if Councillor Malvaginam would confirm that it is part of his plan for the task and finish group to ask I'm not going to say the main advisor to the council back in 2016 on the purchase of the square for their breakdown of exactly how they advised the council and the comparisons that they made with the other properties and why they advised on the value as they did.
Would you like me to answer that, Madam Mayor? Just to confirm, Councillor McClafferty, yes, they would be invited at the appropriate time. Everyone will be given a fair hearing at this committee, which is resolved today in the working group, that we will be impartial to the point of when we write up to the point of writing the report. So yes, they would be invited, or it may be.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I may. I'm sure Councillor Malvaginam just slightly misspoke there, that they'll be impartial up until the point where they write the report. I'm sure Councillor Malvaginam,
sorry,
including when the report was written.
I did clarify it soon afterwards. I'd realized what I'd said. I'm sure you know what I mean. It'll be impartial. That's one of the principles which I insisted that the working group has when we met up today.
Thank you. Any other members wish to make comments? Is that agreed, members? Okay.
So are there any against?
I can ask. Any against? Any abstentions? Councillor Bates and Councillor Brooks. Then the motion is carried. Item 13, I'd now like to invite members to ask questions of the leader, Councillor Alan McClafferty, on issues relating to executive functions. Can I have the first question from a member, please? Councillor Malvaginam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we all know, we are actually most likely going into a second phase, and even today's news was not brilliant. We had actually had about 19,000 COVID cases in the country, and the local news is that the COVID cases have doubled significantly from yesterday. So it's a worrying time for all of us. I would actually like to understand from Councillor McClafferty, from the exec point of view and from the council's point of view, as to one, whether we are totally ready. B, I know this question has been asked previously, whether we have got adequate reserves. I'm sure we have got adequate reserves, that it's all been put in place, not only the reserve, cash reserves, but also the human resources as well. Supplementary to all this is the income which the council generates from properties. I'm glad Councillor McClafferty actually confirmed the town centre is actually generating income as expected, which is noted. And has there been, due to the COVID, we would have had all part of the same question, but third point is we would have had unemployment go up within the borough. And my concern, which I had raised with the leader some time ago, by way of an email asking whether there would be any impact on the rates collected, council tax collected from the residents. And also finally, the level of rents we have collected so far, has there been a significant fall due to the COVID and to the lack of the business of going out and not, let me rephrase that better. The businesses that have left the town centre and the empty units we have. If you could kindly try and wrap up the whole thing in one big answer. Thanks, Councillor McClafferty. Made a job very short there.
Councillor McClafferty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Councillor Marvaganam, if I understood you correctly, you'd like me to answer these 6 questions just very briefly in one big answer. Okay. Unfortunately, once again, I may disappoint you and have to answer each of the questions individually. But your first one is, are we ready for a second wave? I'd say that given our performance on how we handled as a council the first wave, I think that Surrey Heath Borough Council has been held up as a shining beacon of how to handle the COVID crisis. I think our work of the officers with the Surrey Heath Prepared is second to none. I think that the organisers, which were cross-party, put politics aside in the main and concentrated on what was good for the residents. And I think that the Surrey Heath Prepared was left in a fantastic state, ready to be just turned back on again if we need it. And God willing, we won't need it, but we are ready. We are ready in your second question. As you know, you've asked on a number of occasions. This council has substantial reserves, which it's able to call on. I absolutely acknowledge the question from the councillor earlier about it is unsustainable to just constantly, for a long period of time, just be pulling reserves into a budget. That is unsustainable. But this council and no council is there to protect its reserves no matter what and cut services when in fact it could maintain the service through a short period. And we have substantial reserves which will allow that. And in terms of human reserves, I think we are, I'd go back to my previous answer, this council did exceptionally well and is ready and is planning to be ready again for any second wave. The town centre income, if I can just correct you slightly, and maybe I misspoke earlier in answering the question. I am confident that the town centre has produced a surplus. Not only is it for regeneration, but it has actually produced a surplus. But I'm unable to confirm that given the COVID crisis, and I'd wait for the numbers to come in once we've seen that. That said, I am advised on a regular basis that we continue to be one of the highest collecting councils in the country for both business rates, rents, and for domestic rates. I'm absolutely sure that many of our residents are being affected by unemployment or the fear of unemployment. And as you know, they have the ability to contact the council, and we're doing it on a case-by-case basis where we can support people by either deferring payments or moving payments onto stage payments, etc. So we're doing everything we can to help people with that, but we've seen no substantial drop in collection rates, either in business or domestic. The level of rents collected thus far, obviously there has been a lot of discussion between the company that manages the square and our assets on our behalf. As you know, the resulting rents go into the JPUT that we are currently working on. You're on the cross-party working group that's bringing the JPUT back on shore, which will not only save us substantial sums of money, but will also bring reporting clearer. Unfortunately, at this time, all of the rents have to go through the JPUT, and it will be some time before those numbers are actually available to us, but I'll be more than happy to give you a written reply within 7 days once I've been able to talk with Councillor Lewis and our finance, our 151 officer.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. Councillor Wheeler and then Councillor Wren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Leader, I am very grateful that at a recent executive meeting you agreed to write to both Surrey County Council and Surrey Fire Service with reference in particular to the cuts in the provision of services at Chobham Fire Station. I just wondered whether or not we had had a reply from either of those organisations that I know that you have written to. That's question number one. And then question number two relates to the funding that was made available from the executive for the joint boroughs to look at potential alternative business cases. And I just wondered whether or not the leader is confident that, as Luke Hall MP has written to Councillor Oliver at Surrey County Council, expressing a willingness to review the county's business plans and proposals in order to help develop Luke Hall's thinking of the future, that the county will respond favourably to the question, an offer made by the group borough leaders to actually join us in working out as 12 equal councils a possible unitary grouping. Thank you.
Councillor McClafferty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. I can't say that I have had a reply from either the leader of the county or from the Chief Fire Officer of Surrey Fire and Rescue Service. You know that that was sent some time ago, and I would hope that we at least had the courtesy of a reply. I would expect one. But I also know that everyone's busy, so I will await the reply. But if it doesn't come within a reasonably short space of time, then I'm happy to chase that up. Am I confident that the county will join the 11 boroughs and districts in Surrey and take up the offer from Luke Hall's? I'm confident that Surrey Heath Borough Council will definitely be doing everything it can to ensure that we work with our neighbours and with county. As you know, I sit on the Surrey Leaders Board, and if one thing that's happened with COVID that's positive, it is the fact that the boroughs and districts and the county have recognised how much more can be achieved together rather than silos. And I know that that has had a positive effect. And even the discussion on unitaries, although we have been at odds somewhat with county in terms of exactly how unitaries may be employed, it's clear that the county definitely wants to work with the boroughs and districts. So in actual fact, I am confident that they do wish to do that. I think that the county is a very large organisation, and therefore it takes time for things to change, but I'm confident in the leadership of Tim Oliver. I think he's doing an excellent job, and I believe that they will do, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Wren, and then Councillor Bates and Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, on that last point, I'm not confident, but I admire Councillor McCaffrey's optimism. Just on one of the points that you made in your announcements, which is very concerning, which is, if I'm right in saying that Surrey Heath is seeing the largest rise in universal credit applications in Surrey, which is very concerning. It's not too surprising as we had so many people on furlough, 13,000, and as that's coming to an end at the end of October, and obviously we have the hospitality sector with the town centre, which is all going to be rolled into one. My question is do we know how many applications we've had? Do we know specifically why? Because obviously it could be that you're on low income, or is it due to unemployment, which I suspect it probably is. And lastly, you said that there's no substantial drop in taxes being taken in, which is a positive. But one question I have is that anticipated? Obviously, with more people going on to universal credit, potentially more coming off furlough and then going on to universal credit in the coming months, do we anticipate a drop in taxes, and are we prepared to deal with that if that does come about? Thank you.
Councillor McClafferty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it is, Councillor Wren. It's devastating that anyone has to go on to universal credit. I'm sure no one chooses to do that. And yes, it is true that we have had the largest rise in numbers. I'm not actually able to give you the quantity. I don't have that number to hand, but I'll be very happy to supply that after this meeting. It is, of course, yeah, the single reason that people go on to universal credit is unemployment, and they need some income from that, and they've lost their income. And yes, we are susceptible to it because, as you say, we have a large leisure industry and retail. Are we anticipating a drop in our income from domestic rates, etc.? The finance department has a huge amount of experience, and I was told the other day I'm now, I think, in my 5th or 6th recession in a management position, albeit in business, in private industry rather than local authority. And the officers have a long experience and history of what happens to our income during recessions. Obviously, the last major one being 2008, 2009. So they have that to draw on. And we are budgeting for an appropriate amount of change in our income. It's offset, of course, by the fact that people are still buying houses and people are still moving into the area. So there's an increase as flats are built, we get more residents, etc. So it's not always a single drop, it's a net change. And the officers are there. We are budgeting for the change, but I wouldn't describe it as anticipating a major drop. But as again, I would just stress that we are being as flexible and as helpful and supportive to anyone who needs it as we possibly can.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got 2 questions to ask the leader. I'll do them together just to save time. And they relate to questions that were asked earlier by members of the public. So the first one is on the subject of Watchmore Reserve, where I think he and I share very similar views. Just my question is, as part of the assessment which is going to be taking place, it's important, as we've heard earlier, to seek reassurance, for residents to have reassurance that all of the sites, other sites have been looked at in detail. And therefore, would he agree with me that it's important to review again, just to check if there's no new evidence regarding the last 8 sites that were being looked at by the working group? Because clearly they were the ones that didn't quite hit the mark. There was some support, but ultimately were ruled out for various reasons. So it's important that we just check those again, just to make sure that none of those are viable in any way or any better than the sites which are, well, the site that's being put forward. And also, is that can he confirm that we will also be having further discussions with county and housing associations regarding any unused land that they will have? The second question is actually in his capacity as the chairman of the governance working group, as well as leader. And that relates to the question asked earlier by Councillor Whitcroft about Chapel Lane. I'm not interested in the planning aspect of that because that is a planning committee, but I am concerned about the governance issues it raises and the constitutional issues it raises. And I think it's fair to say that it's been an unsatisfactory situation, both for officers and members all round, and that, as was highlighted by Councillor Hawkins earlier. And therefore, I have written to him on this point already, but can he just confirm that that will now go on the work programme of the governance working group so that we can now discuss that exceptional circumstance and review what, if anything, we would do differently in future?
Councillor McClafferty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bates. Taking your first one, I think you and I are of a very similar mind in terms of Watchmore Reserve. It is with huge reluctance that I signed off on the fact that this was the one of the sites that was a potential for the Gypsy and Traveller permanent site. And I would very, very much like to find a better site than that. But as you know, we have a duty, and unfortunately, tough decisions have to be made. But that doesn't mean to say that we try and make bad decisions, of course. In terms of assuring the residents, I absolutely want to assure the residents. I know you talked about the last 8, and the resident, Mrs. Finnan-Cook, mentioned about the 108 sites. The 108 sites were looked at by, as you know, the cross-party working group. They did it in detail. They went through. There was a huge amount of discussion and questioning of the officers of exactly how they had identified each site and then why any particular site had been ruled out. I was part of that, and I know that the questioning was robust and the answers were as robust when they came back. I think in terms of checking the 8 sites, the ones that made it to the last 8, I have no problem with rechecking those 8 sites. But I have to say that I trust the officers and their judgment. They're professionals. There was absolutely no bias that I could detect at all, and I wouldn't expect there to be any. There was none in the politicians who were on the working group. There wasn't any protection of their ward, or, you know, it'll be fine as long as it's not in my backyard kind of thing. There was none of that. It was a genuine cross-party officer view as to how can we find an appropriate site. And as you know, we landed on the 2, one in Lightwater and one in Watchmore. So in principle, I've got no problems at all in checking if there was anything that we missed, but I honestly don't expect the officers or the members to turn up anything different from the original. It was thorough. And yes, absolutely, I have already contacted to say to Mr. Oliver, Tim Oliver, that we are looking for sites, and would he make any kind of sites available. Councillor Hawkins, we're very lucky that we have 3 borough councillors who are also dual hatters are in county as well. Councillor Edward Hawkins is one of those, and he has particular insight into property, as you know. And I know Councillor Hawkins Edwards is working very hard to help identify anything in the borough that could be used, ideally instead of Watchmore Reserve. So we will be working there, and the Housing Association. I think the second one, Chapel Lane, you're absolutely right. I was heavily involved in this, as was Councillor Edward Hawkins. I have to say the Chapel Lane Action Group, the leadership of that has been exemplary. They have understood the position of the council from day one. They've asked very, very robust questions and have demanded robust answers. Needless to say, they are disappointed, but I don't think that the offers of we found ourselves in. And the short answer is yes, I'll be very happy for the governance working group to review the entire process and make any recommendations it feels that would improve that. I would say Councillor Alloway's motion today, also it kind of didn't get discussed, but we were all discussing about pre-application. In fact, the last item was that about appeals, that the local ward councillors are kept involved with that as well. So I think even Councillor Alloway's motion that we passed today will have some effect on that, but happy for the governance working group to review it.
Thank you, Councillor McClafferty. Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question has just been asked by Councillor Bates and answered by the leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? There be no further questions. That concludes the business of the meeting, and I would like to thank everyone for attending. Good night.